Got green lights? All right. Welcome to the Lewisville City Council workshop session. It is 6:15 p.m. and we do have a quorum. First up on tonight's agenda is discussion of the consent and regular agenda. So, Council, we'll take a look there. I've got Councilmember Kelly with the invocation. I've got Councilmember Cade with the pledges. We've got proclamation for Property and Evidence Week. Item D1, public hearing, amending the zoning ordinance. Item D2, public hearing, adoption of amendment to the 2020 Citizen Participation Plan to remove COVID language. Item F, consent agenda. We have the minutes on item 3. We have a $482,000 professional services agreement with GFF. That's for the annex remodel.
Does that include the library or no? No. I don't think so.
Is that the atrium area?
Yeah, the atrium area, and bottom floor. Chris, is there anything else?
That is correct. It's the atrium area, and actually both the bottom and the second floor.
Where
And the court?
dispatch was.
That's correct.
Is it the court included in
Does it
that?
include the court?
That does include the court. That's
Okay.
correct.
Item 5, 1.398 million with OCMI for project and cost management services for the Prairie Creek wastewater treatment plant aeration basin. That's a big deal.
That's just for the project control of cost management.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a big project.
Item 6, ratification of professional services agreement for data migration services in the amount of $289,000. Item 7, bid award for Midway Branch Force Main project to Wilson in the amount of $13.3 million. Item 8, utility crossing license agreement between DART and the City of Lewisville for North Cowan Avenue improvements. That's a right-of-way easement for $5,600. Item 9, interlocal cooperation agreement for animal control services between Allen, Arlington, Grand Prairie, Grapevine, Irving, Mesquite, Plano, Richardson, and Lewisville.
So is this an existing agreement between all these other cities at this point, and we're just kind of joining in at this point?
I'll ask Chris. Yes, we did.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we're joining the group. So it's originally, I think, 2018?
So, and does this work with like day-to-day operations where there's overcrowding? Or is it just for emergencies? Okay.
Okay, awesome. Item 10, interlocal for library services with Denton County.
Are there any cities around us that aren't part of this interlocal agreement?
Carrollton.
Carrollton, that's it? So the only ones not participating in the
I believe
wider?
they're the only one.
And Denton, City of Denton too? Correct.
Okay, City of Denton. Yeah, they're north of the bridge, that doesn't count.
It doesn't count. Just curious people with blind access. And I knew the answer to that question, I just wanted to bring it in the room.
Oh, I know. You can stir the pot. I'm going to talk to Steve later this week, and I have to hear about it.
Too soon.
It's 3 years.
It's been 3 years, yes.
I don't have any staff reports on record for this.
No.
We do not have any regular session items. Everything is consent. And then in closed session, we do have multiple items for closed session tonight. Next up, capital improvement program update. So we've got our Director of Public Services, Mr. Aaron Russell, City Engineer, Mr. David Salmon, our Director of Economic Development and Tourism, Marichelle Samples, and Director of Parks and Rec, Stacy Anaya.
just give a brief introduction. I'm Ashley Carlisle, Budget Manager. I won't be speaking tonight, but I just want to give you some context behind these presentations. This is the second installment that you've seen of these project updates. We sent out a list to City Council earlier this year and we asked what you were interested in. The first installment, we talked about projects that more than one of you were interested in. Now we're down into the list where maybe one of you were interested in or we thought that it's been a while since we talked to you about it, so we went ahead and added some projects in here as well. So one thing I do want to mention, we call this our capital improvement projects. We do also have other projects that are more like multi-year projects. For example, our facade grants. Mary Shell's going to talk about that tonight. Really cool stuff being done with that project here. So we just want to put this in front of you, and for those that are listening online, that a lot of times this is where our bond dollars are going. We're using cash that we have on hand. We're getting funds from Denton County, from other entities as well. So we use all of these funding sources in order to bring this infrastructure and these programs to our residents. So with that, I believe I will turn it over to Aaron first.
Thanks, Ashley. No clicker. Try it.
Is that not working?
Not working.
I can hear it.
I think it might be off. There we go. Okay, so let me start with the general projects. Sidewalk improvements, screening wall repairs, those are ongoing projects that we have. They're more like maintenance projects, but we run them through, like Ashley said, they're multi-year projects so we run them through the capital program because there's something that we do every year. And it's really hard to maintain those within a fiscal year. So we have ongoing contracts to do those. Jones Street and Keeley Avenue, I think David will be talking about Southwest Parkway, North Mill Street, King Arthur Boulevard, and then the Old Town Facade Program, I believe.
Sharon, can I ask a quick question? So with the sidewalk improvements and the screen walls repairs, how do we identify, is that based on citizen input? Or is that just we take an inventory of what we see?
So it's both. We have an inventory of what we see, and then we try to plan those out and try to really group them to execute those in a cost-effective way based on the contracts that we have. But then we also use that project to react to resident input as well. So, for example, we will get complaints for ADA compliance issues, and we use that project to address those issues.
I was going to just use this as an opportunity to plug the app. That if you are able to report things, then that's a good way to get that in front of staff to get that added.
That's a great way, very efficient way, so that we get that on that list and nothing gets dropped. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. And we do get a high percentage of our requests through the app, people using it very, very well. So you can see, we produced a map. You can see a lot of dots all over town. So really this project is extended all over throughout the city. It encompasses repair, maintenance, and then like I said, ADA compliance. We do coordinate with engineering and traffic and parks to try to maximize the pedestrian accessibility through that project. But this is one of those that it's a capital project, mostly because it's something that spans multiple years, not because we have a set scope each year specifically. Well, we do somewhat, but it's also reactive as well. So you can see the spending on this project has increased over the years substantially. And that's just as we get put more and more dollars into infrastructure.
That right there to me is like as a good report card on council's budgeting for infrastructure right there.
Screening walls, same type of project. This is something that we actually, you'll see the funding spend increase quite a bit over the years too, but I do want to point out in '24 our spend was quite a bit lower than the funding we actually had, and that's because we had some issues with a couple of contractors that were just not performing. We would give them work orders to go repair walls, and they were dragging their feet. They had a lot of issues finding brick that would match the wall or get close to matching the wall.
So once we worked our way through that, got some new contractors, we really have increased the workload and gotten a lot of work done on that. But it's, you can see in the map, it extends all over town, and just for the public's edification, these are walls that are in the right-of-way that the city actually owns and maintains. So it's the screening walls on the perimeter of subdivisions, like you see in this picture. That's a great example of the walls, and you know, typically what happens to them is we have a vehicle accident, and a vehicle runs off the road and they drive through a wall. These are typically panels that can just be replaced. Those are rebuilt with bricks. So I'll turn it over to these projects.
I think one interesting data point is not every city does maintain their sidewalks. They get turned over to residents to maintain, so.
Very good point.
That's an amenity that we don't think about here in Lewisville.
Well, I was gonna ask a question related to the screening walls as well. Are some of those owned and maintained by HOAs?
Some of them are, yes.
If there's an HOA, they own the screening wall?
It depends. So some of those were, I mean, we go back and look at the plat. Some of those were dedicated, part of the right-of-way as part of the plat. It just depends. So we have to look at those on an individual basis to figure out who owns them.
We keep track of like which walls we know are ours, and then obviously if someone comes up and raises that issue at the time, then we research it at the time and see, is there a reason why this should be ours or not ours? And
Yeah.
most of the time, I mean, I think we pretty much know what is ours at this point, because once the developer turns it over, we know if it's ours or not.
We have a pretty complete inventory at this point of what we own, but there are, every once in a while, there's one that it's not crystal clear who owns it.
Okay, that's good, because I know probably a lot of people don't know if their screening walls are owned by the HOA or by the city, if they have an HOA. So that's good that we know.
Yep, we do.
Okay, well, our first project from engineering is our Jones Street and Keeley Avenue project. And this project is funded by a federal grant. It's a federal lands access program grant. And the reason we have that funding is because this road provides access to Leela. So anyway, what's nice about this type of grant is that the city has to pay 20%, but we were responsible for providing the engineering or the construction. The contractor that's out there now has actually been contracted by the federal government, and the design was provided by the federal government with city input. Surprisingly enough, working with the design engineer, they worked with us very closely, and we got the road project that we really wanted. And the contractor's being fairly responsive to our needs as well, even though they're not our contractor.
Is that contractor working right now?
I don't know if they have been. They definitely are behind. And again, we don't necessarily have control over them, but they're responding to our needs.
Yeah, I'm just curious if
For the federal government.
for the federal government, does that affect?
Well, actually, and they are. I asked the same question when all that happened, and because this is already funded and they've already, this is a funded project, and so this is continuing, even though the government is shut down, from my understanding.
Mine too.
So anyway, like I said, we do have some city funding involved in this. Construction is about 40% complete. They've estimated completion, and this is coming from the contractor. I don't think this is accurate. They're estimating completion in December, and I don't see that happening. I would assume it's probably going to be more like February or March at the rate they're going. Southwest Parkway, this project has multiple funding sources. It's got some GO bonds, some CDBG funds, and DCTA TRIP funds. Project design has been almost completed, and we're working right now to get some temporary construction easements. So once those easements have been secured, we'll be preparing bid documents and bidding this project. We would anticipate that this project would be complete sometime in late well, the bidding should occur next month in December. And we've got roughly a year estimated for the construction. So I would expect this project to be done sometime around the end of 2026, maybe early 27. On this particular project, we're actually narrowing the street section. Right now it's relatively wide. We're bringing in the curbs and providing a bike lane, a regular 5-foot sidewalk on one side and a bike and pedestrian path behind the curb on the other side. So in order to make all that fit, we're narrowing the street up. And we are providing some on-street parking next to the park down at the east end, south end of the project. But for the most part, there will not be on-street parking here. We're hoping, obviously, this is in an area where we've got a lot of apartments, and so we're trying to enhance the pedestrian access for this particular area. And the feedback we got during the design process is that the apartment complexes really didn't want on-street parking at these locations.
How many lanes is that in each direction? Is it one in each way?
One in each direction.
And it's how wide?
24 feet.
The existing section
No,
is?
the existing, right now the existing, I believe it's a 36-foot street.
Okay, so is this a collector?
It is.
Yeah, okay. I love that we're doing this. I think this section is really great. It's gonna slow down cars
Well,
and make
there
it a
are
more
lot of
pedestrian
pedestrians
friendly.
in this neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
North Mill Street, this project is all but finished. Our contractor is wrapping it up. I think we've got a few punch list items yet to complete. This was converted from an asphalt street to concrete. We maintained, based on a neighborhood input from when we were doing the design, we decided not to do curb and gutter. We left the borrow ditches for the drainage to keep it similar to what it is now. The pavement is a little bit wider than what was out there previously, and that's mainly because we've provided bike lanes on each side. One of the issues that has come up on this, and we're going to be working on this now that the contractor's finished, is we're going to come up with a way to do a little bit better delineation between the bike lanes and the travel lanes. That's one of the comments we've gotten out there. So we'll be working on it. In case you hear anything or complaints about that's an issue we're already aware of. And of course, this was funded. We had some federal money in this project as well as stormwater funded GO bonds. King Arthur Boulevard. We finally have our final plans from the consultant, and we're working on bid documents now. So with any luck, we should be bidding this project around the end of this month, maybe early December at the latest, which means we'll be starting construction on it sometime right after the first of the year. We're providing, basically what we're doing with this project is we're kind of narrowing the street section. We're providing parallel parking, narrowing the street, putting in some bump outs and some little bit of landscaping, and we're adding bike lanes. What makes this a little bit unusual, I guess, we're doing something a little bit different here. We're putting the bike lane on one side of the street, so you'll have a two-way bike lane on one side of the street, and you'll have parking on the opposite side. And then you'll just have two 11-foot through lanes, one in each direction, with bump outs and such. So hopefully that'll slow some of the traffic down. We've been having a lot of issues out here with speeding traffic. And I'll turn it over to Marichelle.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question before we move off the streets real quick? So I know we talked about in certain places looking at roundabouts that get big and expensive. Do we have anywhere to try traffic circles, much smaller, but still the same idea of going around a circle to slow down instead of?
It can be done. I mean, it still requires some amount of right-of-way, but yeah, you can do a smaller traffic circle.
Do we have anywhere in the city we've done that so far?
No, we don't have any
I
existing ones.
saw that come up in other cities' plan for this exact thing, the traffic calming and traffic circles or something I hadn't talked about before, so I was curious about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't done, we don't have one yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we looked at projects spanning over just approximately the last 5 years. Actually, within the last 5 years, the one that was furthest long ago was August of 2022. So I'd just say generally for our facade grant programs, the policy says that it's a matching grant, so you have to invest, obviously, and we would contribute 50%, but with a max of $40,000. So Spur on Main, this used to be the old Pines dealership, and they transformed this project. The enhancements included new windows, doors, paints, and the overhead doors were turned into new storefronts. Again, they were finished back in 2022. They spent about $157,000, and they maxed out the grant at $40,000. And so now they've been hosting events there for years, and some of their proceeds go back to supporting women in the community. 162 West Main Street. So this included both front and rear facade. They replaced the storefront, the doors, updated the awnings, and did some other repairs. They spent approximately $64,000, and they maxed out with $13,000 for the city participation. They completed back in 2023, and Tullius H is their current tenant, and so they provide, you can purchase clothing and other type of decorative home good items as well. So this is the front before and after, and then this is the rear before and after. Sullivan Barbecue, they also received a grant last year. They did the enhancements to the front facade by extending the patio, which has allowed them to have more patrons there, but they also have live music out in front as well. And they spent approximately $124,000, and of course they maxed it out at the $40,000 for the city contribution. They completed at the end of last year, and again, they're able to accommodate more seating, more patrons, as well as to activate the patio by bringing performances as well. So this is the office spaces at 189 Elm and 120 Charles. This included renovation of 7 offices across 3 buildings, and they did new landscaping, signage, paint, roof, doors. They completed back in July of 2025. This one, the max was $120,000 for the city contribution because they had 3 buildings to account for rather than just the one where some of the other projects did. And so this is the estimate because they're still going through the process of submitting their receipts for their reimbursement request. But we're anticipating if they max it out, it would be the city reimbursement portion would be $120,000. The last I checked, they're about 76% occupied, but they thought that was going to be changing. They recently completed these, so getting new tenants in, and they're also offering some of the office spaces up for sale if someone is so interested in doing so as well. So Buffalo Hirsch is our most recent one. They completed earlier this summer, September 2025. So this was the former Salvation Army property. They received $40,000 basically per building because it includes 2 buildings on the one building on the Elm side and 1 building on the Main side. They transformed it into a bar, beer garden. They have a gaming area, food trucks, lots of outdoor seating. And they spent about $1.7 million, and our total reimbursement will be $80,000. That's if they max it out, which I'm anticipating they are. They are also just now going through the process of submitting their receipts as well for compliance. And so they've been open ever since September and has been doing really well. So these are the before pictures, and then it's just a collage of the after pictures of what it looks like. And separately, not included in the $80,000 was the mural. So that was a separate grant that they got, but we wanted to include it because we love it.
That's all I have.
All right.
Mayor, council members, park fans, actually, we just have one project today because we already briefed you on what's going on with the Nature Center. So we wanted to talk about our solar lighting project. If you'll remember through the Healthy Infrastructure Plan, one of our action items was to improve some of the existing parks through SEPTED design, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And one of the ways that you can do that is integrate lighting into our parks. And so we actually worked with Public Services to identify some poles and fixtures that are solar lighting. Our team, we bought fixtures, our team watched them install one, and then the rest of them through LL Woods were installed by our team. And so if you go out to LL Woods and walk along the spine right now, that is more lit than it was before. It's not just every step, but you can see your whole way through there. We completed that for $30,000, and we've gotten requests at other parks like Rowland Park or Valley Ridge Greenbelt, and we're trying to figure out, do we like this style or do we need to go to a more pedestrian one to see if we can rearrange some of our funding that we typically get to do those projects throughout the system.
How many new lights did we put out there?
I think it's between 6 and 7. I think, and they're tall right now.
Between 6
and 7, so you got like 6.5. It's that new math.
It's complete. If you walk out there, it's really, really nice. The other thing that we tried to make sure is that we integrated dark sky principles in the fixtures to make sure it doesn't disturb the birds.
Yeah, we met the manufacturer of TML.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we met these
Talked
guys.
with them a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and I just remember we had the one solar light out there for forever. Steve Backus was so proud of that light with the giant battery pack and the solar panel.
Yeah.
So it's
And
really.
these are a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and so hopefully it's something that we can move forward with. All right. Utility projects. Wastewater fans.
Fans of drinking water. So this is a fairly large project that it's the first of several that will be coming for the water plant expansion. So it's constructing a new clear well, which is really just an underground tank that we store water at the water plant, and then also new pump station. So you can see it's going off in this corner. It will also result in some demolition of some other stuff to make room for future phases of plant expansion. But transition this box here, you have a 2 million gallon clear well, and then a new pump station here, which is sorely needed due to a pump station that is not performing like we'd like it to. It's really at the end of life. So. This project, we estimate this project at $70 million all in right now. I will say we meet with our consultants for both the wastewater plant and the water plant, same consultant as HDR. We talk about pricing of projects. So I'm kind of preparing you for what they're telling me, which is the pricing on these projects is still very volatile. While water lines, sewer lines, streets, those types of projects have really stabilized in the market. There's a small number of contractors that build these type of projects, so that market is still somewhat volatile. One of the things that we've talked about at extent is how do we bid this to get the best price, because you're either going to hire a contractor that does pump stations who's going to sub out the tank, or you're going to hire a tank contractor who subs out the pump station, because nobody really does both. We've talked to contractors. We're leaning towards bidding it out altogether because the tank contractors are telling us that they prefer to be subs versus general contractors. Plus, it's a little messy trying to have two contractors on the same site. So, 60% design. We just finished 60% design. They updated pricing. It didn't really change a whole lot. Changed it by about $2 million, which is a lot of money, but in percentage-wise, not a huge change. So, if there's any questions on that project, I'll turn it back over to Dave.
This is our Ace Lane 12-inch water line and sidewalk project, which is also almost complete. We're actually down to just a few punch list items. We installed a new sidewalk for the Ace Lane Mobile Home Park, trying to get them up to Valley Parkway. And what was kind of interesting about that is because Ace Lane is kind of elevated quite a bit above the mobile home park, and there's quite a big slope between the roadway and the mobile home park. We actually had to build the sidewalk down below the slope, so the sidewalk, even though it's parallel to the street, is several feet away, and it's at a lower elevation, so when you're driving on the road, you really can't even see the sidewalk, but it is serving the mobile home park. And then in conjunction with the sidewalk construction, we also extended a 12-inch water main and created a water main loop down in that area of the city so that we have a redundant service. And anyway, it's almost completed, and we should be accepting that project here within the next couple of weeks.
Any questions?
Good stuff. Appreciate the updates. All right. Item C, parkland dedication and tree mitigation ordinance updates. Stacy and I will be presenting.
All right. Alright, so we'll be talking a little bit about tree preservation, parkland dedication, what our next steps are. A little bit of the background, all the stuff that we've been talking about is grounded in the healthy infrastructure plan, not only from our goal and aspiration to have a park within 10-minute walk of everyone's front door, but also how we need to protect and preserve and grow our urban tree canopy. And so we've been working through this for quite a while. If you'll remember back at the council retreat, we talked to you a little bit about what we would be exploring and bringing these forward, not only from the aspect of having park development agreements with developers as they're developing new residential areas, but what improvements we might make to our tree preservation and mitigation portion of the UDC. In April, we got a report based on some grant money that we had gotten to study our urban canopy, and Dr. Lauren Fisher, who had started out with UNT and is now at the University of Buffalo, made some observations and preliminary recommendations about how we might improve our tree mitigation and preservation ordinances just to strengthen that canopy. And then in May, she came and gave a presentation to y'all, which is really the basis for what we're looking at in terms of revising some of our outdated ordinances, improving those preservation standards, and how could we get up to a mitigation cost that would help us keep up with the cost of replanting when trees are taken down. So one of the things that the city manager challenged us with was looking at how we address commercial areas who have in the past filed an ESP with a landscape plan, and if some of that landscaping dies, rather than going in with the landscaping plan in the 1990s that was great, but included invasive species, trees that wouldn't live here that are constantly going under. How can we move them closer towards using a native tree plant and plant palette? So that's one of the things that we've said, that in our landscaping standards, rather than having commercial properties go back to the former landscaping plan, to really go to our current shrub, understory, and tree list, and to maintain at those qualities. So we've made that recommendation for change. Another thing that we've done is we've removed the sawtooth oak from the approved shade tree thing. Sawtooth takes down trees, but also the National Park Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife is no longer recommending it because it's become invasive. This really does give property owners some flexibility, and also end up in the long run costing them less money than it currently does right now, because you keep putting in non-native species, they're going to keep dying during extreme weather events, and so we're really looking to move that. And this will also be the first step in our march towards having the commercial Roots for Wings program. Then on tree preservation, one of the things that we've talked about is, if you remember from the Healthy Infrastructure Plan, over 60% of our urban tree canopy is 6 inches or less. And right now, a protected tree starts at 8 inches. So what we're recommending is we're going down to a 6-inch DBH when you have to do a tree preservation plan on a piece of property that's going to be developed. We're also recommending that, if you remember Dr. Fisher talking about how when we first wrote the UDC, we thought this would be a great way to protect our post oaks and blackjacks by giving them elevated credits when people try to preserve them on a development. It was actually working against us, and people were using it to take out more trees and more of those blackjack and post oak. So what we're trying to do now is just remove that extra 2 inches in terms of a credit and protect them a little bit more. If you'll remember back during the budget process, y'all have already approved us moving from 150 cal per inch for replacement if a tree goes down to 200. And then we also talked about designating heritage trees, things that are important to our community in terms of their size, but how could we also address the change in the post oak and blackjack oaks coming out of that preservation credit. And this was actually something that the planning and zoning group asked us to do. When we said we were moving post oaks and blackjacks from that 2-inch credit, they said, well, why don't we see those as heritage trees? And so what we're recommending is that any post or blackjack oak that's 12 inches or greater be considered a heritage tree, and then any tree that's not on our no-fly list in terms of like a Chinese pistache or what have you, or Bradford pear, that we consider them heritage trees. So 26 inches or larger. And so 26 inches, that's like 2 of me, right? Or there's a great 57-inch American elm out in Ralden Park, that if that were in an area that was going to be developed, that we would ask that those be considered heritage trees, and that people do what they can not to take them down, but if they were going to, that they would have an elevated mitigation cost of $300 per inch, so that we could go out and replant. And like I said, there is no one in their right mind who thinks that replacing a 57-inch American elm with 57 1-inch trees is going to equal the carbon sequestration, helping us with the urban heat island, but it would at least get us closer. And these types of trees, especially with the post oaks and blackjacks, they do have an elevated cost for replacement just because the blackjack oaks and post oaks are so hard to cultivate. So what we're asking is that we move unprotected trees to 6 inches. Another thing that the Parks or the Planning and Zoning Commission asked us to consider at one time, we only were considering hackberries over 12 inches as a protected tree, and as we got some questions from Planning and Zoning, well, aren't bodark and cottonwoods native to Texas? And we said yes, but many times they're found in riparian areas or green belts. So they asked that we remove them from the no-fly zone and consider them to be protected, but only at that elevated 12-inch DBH. And that all trees between 6 and 26 inches would be protected. And then for establishing a heritage tree, anything over 26 inches or a blackjack oak over 12 inches be considered a heritage tree, and that proposed fee be $300 per caliper inch. On the parkland dedication side, we're trying to make some changes so that we could work with developers in the most efficient manner possible, but also to reflect the changes that we needed to do to protect existing tree canopy. So on the minimum park improvements, right now what we have is that developers are supposed to clear a piece of property. in order to get it ready for us to come in and develop behind them. And so we've changed that a little bit, that if it's something we want clear, that's it, but their first thing should be to protect the tree canopy on that piece of property. We've also asked that they need to build sidewalks along those spaces. And then we've modified our mechanism for park development agreements to make sure that it's a little bit easier for us to work with developers to get the parks in the new developments in a timely manner, and how we could do that through development agreements that are consistent and have a predictability for developers. We also are doing some clarifications so that on all final plats that parks will be labeled city parks. You'll be amazed at the randomness that city parks are on plats, and it makes it really difficult when you're trying to prove up where our properties are, and this would just make it easier. We also wanted to clarify the timeline, that if we take cash in lieu or development fees for parks and we don't get them up within 10 years, developers can ask for their money back. I won't ever let that happen. But we needed to clarify and make sure that they had a mechanism for getting that done. Just a reminder, back during the budget process, we took our parkland development fee, which is how we go vertical, off of a park that's dedicated, from $1,100 to $1,682 per dwelling unit during the budget process, and that was simply reflecting the cost of what it's taking us to build infrastructure in the park system. Prior action, Park Board gave us a thumbs up on October 28th. Planning and Zoning, we received guidance from them, and we're planning on going back for their formal recommendation tomorrow night. If we have some changes, we can do that as well. And then we're targeting formal City Council action on these changes on December 1st, just because we have to notify the public that changes are coming.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Have you gotten any input from the development community about some of this?
We have gone to planning and zoning and been working with the planning and legal department, so inadvertently through that. They've also, we had some questions at planning and zoning on that. For instance, we know that there was a question about the 6-inch, dropping from 8 inches to 6 inches. Our comparison cities, of the 14 of them are 6 and under. Carrollton is 4, and then 4 are 8 and over, and we're one of the 4 of 8 and over. So we'd be heading back into what is really common in the development community. We also talked to, if you'll remember, the tree study. We did some outreach to commercial owners and developers in the study for direct questions about, especially this landscaping ordinance, if we would go to having native trees. So we've done it through that way as well.
Other questions? All right. Any other comments before we go ahead and take a 3 to 4 minute break and start up the council meeting at 7 p.m.? All right. Workshop's adjourned. It is 7:01 p.m. and we're going to call this meeting of the Lewisville City Council regular session to order. We do have a quorum. First up on tonight's agenda, we have the invocation by Councilmember Patrick Kelly.
Join me for a moment of contemplation. Thank you.
Please join me in a pledge to the American and Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Listen, if y'all are sharing Candy. I'm on to you. All right, good evening. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we have a proclamation and recognition. Where's my property and evidence team? Cynthia, you mind coming up here? Then bring them. I'm going to read this while they wander up this way. So we have a few warehouses. But folks, I don't know if you realize this, but every one of our officers wanders around with a camera attached to their body. Multiple cameras on their cars, cameras in the buildings, there's cameras everywhere. And so when you think about property and evidence, you've got to start thinking about how technology has massively changed how police departments work with evidence because video is everywhere now. And this team right here helps to keep that all in line and allows our officers to stay out in the field, whereas before they might have had to spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with all this types of evidence that we now can get a hold of. So what these folks here to my right do is incredibly important to make sure that our police officers are focused on what they need to do to keep our community safe, and then what our attorneys need to do to be able to keep the bad guys where they need to be. So whereas the City of Lewisville Police Department Property and Evidence Division manages the receipt, documentation, storage, preservation, and lawful release or disposal of all physical and digital property and evidence, and whereas the police property and evidence staff handle requests from internal and external customers and foster relationships with other law enforcement agencies, government entities, and organizations to promote interagency communication, and whereas they currently manage about 120,000 physical property items, intake approximately 5,500 items, and release or dispose of approximately 7,500 items annually, and are responsible for maintaining chain of custody to support prosecutions, and whereas the City of Lewisville recognizes the importance of every law enforcement position in service to our community, therefore I, T.J. Gilmore, Mayor of the City of Lewisville, Texas, and on behalf of the Lewisville City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of November 2nd through the 8th, 2025 as Police Property and Evidence Week in Lewisville, Texas, and urge all residents to express their appreciation to the Lewisville Police Department Property and Evidence staff for their dedication and contribution to the community. And I would say, please don't add to the evidence pile. That would be a great way to celebrate this week. So let's give them a hand.
What can I say? Thank you, Mayor Gilmore and City Council, for recognizing us. We're kind of a behind-the-scenes group, but we are very important to the police department, and we have a chief that recognizes that, and an assistant director, Mays, as well, that it recognizes our importance, and we really just appreciate that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. Appreciate you. All right, next up, public hearing, item D1, public hearing, consideration of an ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending the zoning ordinance by rezoning approximately 52.589 acres of land legally described as First Broadcasting Edition, Block A, Lot 1, and Block B, Lot 1, located on the east side of Huffines Boulevard on both the north and south sides of the future corporate drive, from light industrial district zoning to specific use district zoning to planned development light industrial district zoning, correcting the official zoning map, preserving all other portions of the zoning ordinance, determining that the zoning amendment herein made promotes the health, safety, and general welfare of the city, providing for a savings clause, repeal or severability, a penalty, and an effective date as requested by Pulley Studios Incorporated and Prologis, the applicant, on behalf of Dallas Broadcasting LLC, the property owners. Item 25043PZ. Prologis, an industrial developer that has completed several industrial projects in Lewisville, proposes to build 2 distribution warehouse buildings at Huffines Boulevard and the future corporate drive extension. The developer initially met with staff prior to the adoption of the warehouse distribution supplemental standards that were added to the Unified Development Code in February 17, 2025, and has worked with staff to ensure the design of this development meets the intent of those standards. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended unanimous approval 6-0 on October 7, 2025. It's recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption above, and John Beckham, our senior planner, is available for questions. The public hearing is now open.
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
Do you want to close the public hearing first?
I do have Mr. Robert Bissett, I hope, from Richardson, Texas, here available to answer questions.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and ask my question?
Sure.
Okay. So I just had a question about looking through some of the exhibits, and it looks like Building 8 is encroaching into the floodplain. Is that right?
And if you'd state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Robert Gossett, 2380 Performance Drive, Richardson, Texas. So Building 8 is encroaching into the floodplain. We're actively doing the flood studies and everything to do all the FEMA and the city permitting process. And so we've done the upfront work to prove that everything works as is with no rise. It meets the city code. We have a formal study being submitted. Assuming this gets approved tonight, we're going to submit in 2 weeks to engineering and start that process.
Okay. Are you doing like a clomer or a loamer or?
So we're doing both, and so we have to meet the city's criteria 1, which is actually more stringent than FEMA, and then we're going to go through the clomer process for FEMA, and then we can't do the loamer until after construction is complete, but that is it's in the plan to do a loamer post-construction.
So my question about all of that is coming back around to, since there's probably still, at this point in the game, I'm assuming you don't have that all fleshed out, but looking at the provisions in the text about the preserving 15% of the existing topography or the landscaping trees, the tree canopy, do we have any concern that might be affected by any regrading that has to happen as part of a floodplain mitigation?
No, so we actually did all that work up front before we even came in, and we were working with staff. And so as that code was being written, we were actively doing grading plans and the floodplain modeling, and so we were doing all that up front before we ever finalized a building layout or came to P&Z. So
okay, that's an excellent answer. Excellent answer. Thank you.
So,
that's all I had. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep.
Any other questions?
Move to close the public hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Council, if you please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Council, I'll entertain a motion to approve. As soon as the software catches up to us. There we go.
I move to approve the ordinance as set forth in the caption.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you please vote. Motion is approved unanimously. Thank you, Council. Item D2, public hearing, consideration of resolution of the City Council of the City of Lewisville, Texas, providing for the adoption of an amendment to the city's 2020 Citizens Participation Plan to remove sections of the plan specific to engagement during the COVID pandemic and update plan language to clarify city engagement practices. The Citizen Participation Plan is a document required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development outlining policies and procedures for public participation in the development and review of funds the city receives from HUD, including Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Program funds. On August 3rd, 2020, City Council adopted the amendment to the city's 2019 Annual Action Plan, which included an amendment to the Citizens Participation Plan to reflect waivers granted by HUD to public engagement processes due to the COVID pandemic and city practices for meetings held during the pandemic. A citizen participation plan must be amended to remove language specific to the processes and waivers granted during the COVID pandemic and update the plan to clarify the city's planned public engagement practices. It's recommended that the City Council approve the resolution as set forth in the caption above, and the public hearing on this is now open. I do not have any comments registered for this. If there are no further comments or questions from council, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Mayor, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Council, if you please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the resolution as set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Item E, Visitors Forum. Speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to individual council members or staff. Speakers should speak clearly and state their name and address prior to the beginning of their remarks. Speakers will allow 5 minutes for testimony. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, and similar demonstrations will not be permitted. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Action can only be taken at a future meeting. I do not have any public comment cards. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. All following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and be enacted with one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a member of the public so requests. For a member of the public to request removal of an item, speaker card or e-comment must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. I do not have any requests to remove anything from consent. So council, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Council, if you please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Item G, reports. There are no staff reports from any of our directors. Council, we'll go ahead and do reports at this point. So, Councilmember Green, you mind if we start with you?
Sure. Report.
Councilmember Tipton? Thank you. Councilmember Cade?
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Couple library activities for the week. Teens at the Hive custom note boards. Teens 13 to 18 only, Thursday, November 6th, 6:30 to 7:30. The Hive Makerspace registration is required. Story Stroll Story Time at Central Park for families with children of all ages, Friday, November 7th, 10 to 10:30, Central Park. No registration or ticket is required. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Troyer?
I have a few items for the Lewisville Grand Theater. Basically, the only thing is that the Grand Theater is now selling tickets for all 5 of the 2026 Black Box Songwriters Series events. These are the Traveling Red River Songwriters on Friday, January 16th, Suzanne Chaffel, Sunday, February 15th, Max and Heather Stalling on Sunday, March 22nd, the 14th Annual Lewisville Grand Songwriter Workshop on Saturday, April 18th, and then Terry Hendricks and Lloyd Maines on Sunday, April 19th. And that is all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Kelly?
So just a couple of things. We have Illuminate Lewisville coming up on the 7th, 8th, and 9th. That is going to be a magnificent display. Please join us out here when you can, from 6 to 9, I think, each night. Should be pretty neat. And then also, there are so many opportunities to get involved right now. I can't even keep up. I see probably every day there's another posting on Facebook about gathering public input. If you're not providing input, it's not from a lack of opportunity. Please go out there, follow the Parks Department especially, and other groups as well within the city, and be heard and give your input. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City Manager? All right. Have 2 other things to add to Saturday, November 8th. We have the reschedule of our Love of Lewisville event. Look forward to having everybody out there. That starts at 7 a.m., so dark and early. But it is an amazing event, and if you have the opportunity to give back, this is a great way to do it. If that is not, maybe you don't have a group or don't want to get tied up into rehab of facilities, you can actually be part of our KLB Trash Bash instead. And that is 6:30 start. Well, I'm sorry, that's my wife's on the board. She has to get there early. That's looking like it's going to be at 9 o'clock and goes until noon. But you can find out more information on the Trinity Trash Bash with Keep Lewisville Beautiful's website. So lots of great opportunities to participate in your city this weekend. And you're right, you almost have to try to not be able to participate. There's so many great opportunities for residents to get out and love your city. With that, we're going to go ahead and move into closed session. So in accordance with Texas Government Code Subchapter D, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, legal issues regarding temporary Lewisville Fire Station Number 1, 1 located at 1150 McGee Lane, Lewisville, Texas. Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, legal issues regarding the application of Section 253.011 of the Texas Local Government Code. Section 551.072, real estate property acquisition. Section 551.087, economic development, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. With that, we're going to move into closed session. Council, is there any action to be taken?
Yes, Mayor. I move to authorize the city manager or her designee to take all actions necessary to purchase property located at the northeast corner of Henrietta and Church Streets, listed in the Denton Central Appraisal District records as parcel R744610 in Lewisville, Denton County, Texas, for $500,000 plus closing cost.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. As there is no further action to be taken on tonight's agenda, we stand adjourned. 8:01.